Let's talk about the Big Ten tournament. Who's going to win it? How far will the Terps go? I'll give my Big Ten tournament predictions next.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And I'm also doing work at Inside Black and Gold. So make sure you guys head over to insideblackandgold.net for all your latest Terps news. And today's episode is brought to you by TurboTax. Ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed? Head over to turbotax.com today and get matched with your expert. Let's talk about the Big Ten tournament. This is the last day that we're going to be talking about the Big Ten tournament before Maryland basketball is actually in it and we actually know who we're going to play. To be completely honest, I'm a bit tired of talking about the Big Ten tournament and what if can happen and this can happen if this. I want to see who Maryland's going to be playing, but I want to give an overall kind of perspective, my perspective on the Big Ten tournament after talking to some people, just kind of what's to deal with the Big Ten tournament, what's going to happen with it. I definitely have some different thoughts. First of all, I think the bigger scheme of things, everyone thinks about March Madness. And obviously, Maryland's a team that could lose first round in the Big Ten tournament, and they're still going to probably be a 4 or 5-ish seed in the Big Ten tournament. But when I talked to JBR Bracketology, and that episode's up on our YouTube a couple episodes ago, and he was talking about Big Ten tournament, it historically doesn't really change where you're seated. Like, it rarely changes where you're seated. So he was saying, even if Maryland goes all the way, even if Maryland makes some type of run in the Big Ten tournament, it probably won't change where the Terps are seated. Even if we win it, we'll probably still be sitting on that 4 line. And that's kind of where all the outlets are predicting us right now. So I wanted to first start off with that. The grand scheme of things, it looks like it won't change our seating very much because I guess that they vote on some of the higher seedings before the Big Ten tournament finishes out. So it definitely can't hurt. I know that for a fact. It can't hurt our seeding if we go out and win games. But it definitely sounds like it won't actually help a ton. So I wanted to get that out the way. But I also think there's a chance that if Maryland somehow puts together a winning Big Ten tournament and wins the whole thing or something like that, I do think there's a chance we potentially move up seedings a little bit. It might be from we might end up being the top 4 seed, or we might end up going from a 5 to a 4, something like that. But it does sound like we're pretty solidified into that 4 role. So the Big Ten tournament's more about us. It's more about winning for us. It's more about bringing a Big Ten tournament championship, and that's one of your goals of the year. You only get one March Madness trophy, and what is it? 68 teams compete. 68 when you count some of the play-in games. 68 teams all battle it out, and then there's 64 teams in the round of 32. Like, that is tough. Obviously, there's only one that comes home with that. So the Big Ten trophy, it means something. Definitely means something. There's only one national championship. There's only one national title. And I think winning the Big Ten tournament for the Terps can mean a lot for this program, can mean a ton for Kevin Willard. Definitely can be something we talk about in terms of how good this team was, because I think we're going to talk about this team for a little bit. We're going to look back at this team and say this is one of the better teams possibly under Kevin Willard when we look back at it, depending on how they finish the season. But if they finish the season well, I think we definitely could say that about Kevin Willard and this Maryland basketball team, that this team might be one of the better teams. It's also important for recruiting. I think you always can draw stuff back to recruiting. When you feel like you're playing meaningless games, a lot of it it's about recruiting and the recruits seeing that you're a winning program. And obviously they saw that this year. And I think Maryland's put themselves in a really good spot, especially in the transfer portal, to go at it this year and get some big-time players, which I thought is a really good thing to see. I think Maryland basketball has a really good chance at doing that. And so I do want to talk about more about the bracket now, because we have a better idea. And some of you guys might be watching this later tonight. Most of you guys, I think, won't be. But So now that the bracket is a little bit forward now, we have a better idea of who we're going to play. And yesterday I said I'd rather Iowa beat Ohio State because I feel like Iowa would be the better matchup for us. And that's actually what ended up happening. But of course, Iowa now has to go on and play Illinois, which Illinois should beat Iowa. I think they're 10-point favorites I saw on FanDuel. So I think that that's something that should probably happen is Iowa losing to an Illinois team that's talented. So either way, we'll probably end up playing Illinois. But like I said, you never know in the tournament. Weird stuff happens in these things. Weird games happen, and you just don't know what can happen. An Iowa team can randomly start playing really hot, start doing some really good things. You just don't know what can happen for a team like Iowa. But I think that the Terps potentially playing Illinois/Iowa now, we have a better, clearer picture. That game's at 6:30 tonight. So a lot of you guys might watch that, see what's going on with that. I would expect Illinois. Illinois has got the better team. They've been better all year. So that's just a little bit of a preview for Maryland's next game. I do think that Illinois is the much harder opponent. Like I said, they've been really hot lately. They've had some big wins over the last couple of games, which I talked about. I talked about yesterday actually is that this Illinois team has been hot lately. So I think that that's something that really is really important. And then USC beat Rutgers. So that Rutgers experiment was absolutely kind of blew up in their face. USC now goes on to play Purdue, and the winner of that plays Michigan. And the winner of that plays us, hopefully, if we handle business against Iowa or Illinois, and plays us on Saturday, March 16th in the semifinals. So to me, what does a successful Big Ten tournament look like? I think to me, you got to at least make the semifinals. And Maryland gets booted first round, that can hurt momentum going into March Madness. Like, this is important. And I feel like we haven't played a game in a while. So I kind of trace it back to some of the momentum things I was saying before. Is March is a lot about who gets hot at the right time, who kind of hits their stride at the right time. And I think this Maryland team, to me, what your goal has to be is at least to win a game and to make the semifinal. And you really want to go to the Big Ten championship. But, it's not easy to win these games. It's not easy to beat a Purdue team or a Michigan team, more than likely. That's not an easy game to get. But I just think, and it's not easy to beat Illinois, probably, or Iowa even. But I think to me, it'll be really tough when a team gets booted early from their conference tournament, who was a pretty high seed going into March Madness, like kind of like a Maryland, like a 4 or 5. And all of a sudden, they just don't have their stride. They just don't have their balance. They just don't have their same shooting. Things aren't clicking the right way. And you go into the tournament and you end up blowing one to a team early on, and you get upset. We see that all the time to a team that shoots the ball well, to a team that is coached well. There's so many different examples of that. And I don't want this Maryland basketball team to go into this March Madness and not have confidence. So I think at the bare minimum, you really want to win at least one game in the Big Ten tournament. But let me tell you, this Illinois team is not going to be an easy win to get at all. That's a tough win to get. That's a gritty win. You're going to have to put in a lot of effort to beat that Illinois team or Iowa for all that matter. And those are teams that want to beat us after we dominated them in the first matchup. And then I think the other side of the bracket is a little bit, I don't know if I would say deeper, but I think the other side of the bracket is really good as well. I think some of the higher seeding teams are better. Like, I think Oregon's really good. I think Northwestern's a tough 13th seed to play, Oregon to play. I think Wisconsin's pretty good themselves. I think UCLA is decent. I think they've picked it up. I know we beat them, but they definitely picked it up a little bit. So I do think it's an interesting kind of side over there. If I had to make a guess, I really don't know. And I know a lot of people are going to say Michigan State, but I don't love the Michigan State team. I don't. I just don't think they're as good as their record says they are. I don't think they're as good as a lot of people think they are. And I think they're an early candidate actually to get upset pretty early on in March Madness. And so I definitely can see that for the Terps or for that Michigan State. But I do think, like I said, I think the Big Ten isn't necessarily really great at the top. Like, I don't think Michigan State's amazing. I don't think Michigan's amazing as a 3 seed or UCLA is amazing. But I think that it's really deep to the teams that are so in it. Like, I think Indiana's pretty good. They're sitting on that bubble. I think Oregon's better than an 8 seed. I even think Northwestern's pretty solid. I think Wisconsin's really good. I think Illinois is good. Purdue's really good. Like, there's a lot of good teams. There's not a lot of great teams, but I think there's a lot of good teams, and that makes for a really entertaining Big Ten tournament. So I think it's interesting. I'm just glad if we look at from last year, we don't have to sweat it too much. Like last year, I felt like I tried to find a way for Maryland in my head to be able to win the Big Ten tournament to sneak their way into March. But realistically, that was never going to happen. But this year, I think we have a really good shot. But it's also like if we lose, I know there's more season to come, and there's a lot of big games still to come. So I guess Selection Sunday will be here before we know it. And that'll definitely be interesting, and we'll see what they do with the bracket. I guess that is this weekend. But I'm excited to see about this Big Ten tournament before we really get into March Madness. Can we see if this Terps team still has their stride? They haven't played in a little bit. It feels like we haven't had a game in a while. So we'll see exactly what ends up happening. We're going to switch gears a little bit to Maryland football. I want to talk about the quarterback battle and what seems to be up with it. We'll talk about that next. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your account investments and spending in one place. So you just stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Surprising, when I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever, and you can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Looking to optimize your nutrition this year, Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle. Whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto Plus, Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, and grab-and-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. I love how Factor takes the stress out of meal planning. I recently tried their Protein Plus meals, and they were packed with flavor and kept me full throughout the day. The convenience is unbeatable. No press, no mess, just great food in minutes. So eat smart with Factor and get started at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 off and use code LockedOnCollege50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code LockedOnCollege50 off at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 off to get 50% off your first free shipping on your first box. Let's talk about the Maryland quarterback battle. Way too early, and who knows what happens with it, but this is kind of how I see it. It seems like everywhere I kind of go to, everywhere I kind of indulge in and talk to people, it seems like Maryland is more than likely going to start Justin Martin, the transfer from UCLA. And I honestly, for a while, thought Malik Washington was just going to be the guy off rip, but I feel like that's not usually how it goes, not usually how Mike Locksley does things. And where I kind of come in and how I see things is I definitely see Malik Washington pretty early getting the opportunity to take that quarterback spot. But I think, to me, we got to remember this Justin Martin kid is actually, I don't want to say actually, he's a really talented type of player in terms of how he was as a recruit, as a coming out of high school. Like, he was a 4-star rated guy. He's got a lot of tools at 6'4", to probably 30 now. He's got a lot of different traits. And his scouting report out of high school, obviously he's played in college now, so is said long 6'4" quarterback with a ton of long-term upside if he reaches his potential. A gifted thrower with a big arm and easy velocity. The ball jumps out of his hand, and he can make every throw on the field with ease. So that is a really interesting thing about Justin Martin is he clearly has the big arm. He clearly has a lot of talent. I don't know exactly why it hasn't came together at UCLA because obviously he hasn't played a ton there. He's still relatively young. So I guess that kind of makes sense. He got the start against Penn State, went 22 of 30, 167 yards. So nothing too crazy, but not terrible either. And other than that, hasn't played. So I think he's a really interesting type of guy for us because on one hand, you have Malik Washington, who's going to be biting down your ankles to get on the field. And a lot of Terps fans, it's probably tough for a kid like Justin Martin coming in who hasn't played a ton at UCLA, has improved a lot. This is just going to how it's going to go, how I see it. A lot of Maryland football fans are going to push for Malik Washington. And there's going to be a lot of media. There's going to be a lot of media attention behind it. If Justin Martin slips up, if Justin Martin doesn't play well, a lot of Maryland fans are going to want Malik to play. That's just the way it is. I don't think it's going to be quite like Texas, if you guys remember, or not Texas, Oklahoma a couple years ago when Caleb Williams was the 5-star freshman, and then you had Spencer Rattler, and the crowd was literally chanting, "We want Caleb." I don't think it's going to be that type of deal. I don't think it's going to be quite on that level. But I do think there is a world where there's going to be pressure from a lot of different outside factors to get Malik in if Justin Martin doesn't play really great. And to me, that's not really a fair spot for him to be in because I think it's tough when you're as a player, you're like, dang, like, if I make one little mistake, if I don't play well for one game, if I have a bad throw, people are going to start wanting Malik to come in. And I'm not saying that's going to get to him, but I know that's tough as a player. So to me, I think that starting Justin Martin makes sense. It does, and this is still way too early rankings. We still the spring game is going to be really interesting. I really want to see those two rip it around and see what it looks like. They're both really talented. They're both probably like 6'4", like I said. Malik might be like 6'3". They both have the running ability. Like they both are talented guys. So I think you can run the same type of offense with where Talia and Billy Edwards, it felt like those were two different types of players. But Justin and Malik seem pretty comparable in types of players. Could be the case early on where they play kind of both of them. And we've seen that in college football where both guys kind of get time. And I'm not in love with that model. And I don't know if Mike Locksley would do that, but early on the season, you might see that. Remember Clemson with Trevor Lawrence and Bryant, I think the backup was, I want to say Kelly Bryant. They both played in games. Like they both got time in different games. They both played. And so it'll be interesting kind of to see what happens early on the season because you got to get Malik in there sometime. And I think that's kind of the deal. It's going to be a short leash with Justin Martin, and they're going to play Malik pretty soon after. But it'll be interesting to see. I'm really high on Malik, but I think Justin Martin has some stuff to prove. But we'll see exactly how it goes. But I did want to talk about that a little bit because I do think that's something that people are curious about, and it's a good break from basketball. There's going to be a ton of basketball over the next, hopefully, couple of weeks. As long as the Terps team doesn't get upset or something like that, there'll be a lot of basketball over the next couple of weeks. So I did want to talk about that. Let's talk about Selton Miguel. I think he's the key to Maryland basketball. I think he's the key to making a run. I think he's an X factor that could really be big. We'll talk about that next. This is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find every deduction possible and file every form and every investment. Everything with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is taxes. Get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. To me, the biggest X factor is Selton Miguel, and I know he's not necessarily a huge X factor, like he's a starting player for us. And when you think of the X factor, sometimes you think about a bench guy, somebody that's not really known from the outside perspective. But I think that's kind of what it is with Selton Miguel. I know he's on a bench guy. I know he starts for us. To me, he's the key. I think he's gotten so much better throughout the season. I think there was a phase where I just wasn't necessarily impressed with him. I thought he was trying to do a little bit too much. I thought he was looking off people. It looked like he didn't quite fit in. And then there's been this recent phase where I've been like, dang, Selton Miguel's really taking us to another level and is playing at a really high level. And he's doing things that I didn't know Selton Miguel was going to be able to do, or I didn't think he was going to do early on in the season. But now I'm seeing him do things where I'm like, he can really take our team to the next level and really allow us to be a really good team. And I think I've seen that as of late. When we have won games and when we have lost games, a lot of it, when you look back at it, is Selton Miguel. I just want to talk about our last two losses, our last three, four, really, you can go back to 4 losses. Michigan State, which was that big game at home. Selton Miguel got in foul trouble, only got 6 points, 0-3 from the three-point line. Couldn't play as many minutes as he normally does, only played 23 minutes. And that's not like he usually is around 33, 34, even sometimes higher than that these days. And only had 6 points, and we couldn't rely on him offensively. And so that was a huge game. He was on the bench for a lot of it where we really needed his offense and we really needed his scoring. And look at this game against Ohio State. We lost by 3 points. Selton Miguel has 7 points, 0-2 from the free throw line, 3-9 from the field, 1-5 from the three-point line. And then you look at Northwestern, another loss we had. Selton Miguel has 4 points, 22% from the field, 2-9 from the field. Had a poor game, didn't look great after playing 36 minutes. I thought he made a number of mistakes in that game. I thought he did things pretty poorly, and that was our loss against Northwestern, and then even a loss against a team like Oregon, only 9 points. So when Selton Miguel doesn't score in double digits, and there's a couple other examples of him not scoring in double digits and us winning, but for the most part, when we win, he scores in double digits. If you look at kind of how the stats go, look at it. Northwest, these are our last 10 games or so. Northwestern, we win, he drops 11 points. Michigan, we win, he drops 17. Penn State, we win, he drops 17. Michigan State, we lose, he drops 6. USC, we win, he drops 11. Iowa, we win, he drops 17. Nebraska, we win, he drops 17. Rutgers, we win, he drops 17. Ohio State, we lose, he drops 7. Wisconsin, we win, he drops 12. Indiana, we win, he drops 15. Illinois, we win, he drops 14. Nebraska, we win, he drops 13. Northwestern, we lose, he drops 4. Northwestern, we lose, he drops 4. Minnesota, we win by 6 points. He drops only 6 points. So that was the last win we got where he didn't get in double digits. And so every loss this season that we've had, except for one in recent in Big Ten play, we talk about after December 21st, after a game against Syracuse, all those games ahead of that, not the earlier Big Ten games, but all the games ahead of that, Selton Miguel, besides one game, if he dropped double digits, we won. If he didn't, we didn't win. So my point is, he's the X factor to this team. And when he's playing well offensively, I always say this, our team hits a new level. Our team hits a new potential that wasn't always there before. And he really can bring that out, and he can really allow us to hit a different type of gear that a lot of people don't know or don't think that we can have. And so I do think he's a really talented player. I think he has a really high ceiling as a player. And I think that he gives us a lot. He definitely weighs sometimes where it's like sometimes really high, sometimes really low. But I think Selton Miguel can really make a huge difference for this team. That's all we have for today. Thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps.